Limitations of the unemployment rate. First, you have to look at the definitions of employed and unemployed. So if you're employed, it's within the past week. You're either self-employed or you're working for an employer. You're working full or part-time, which means you can also be working in a family business without pay. You can also have a job, but you didn't work, so you're just on vacation enjoying your life. So over here you have employed and unemployed, which constitute the labor force. To be unemployed, you have to fit these conditions over here. And then if you don't fit either of those definitions, then you're not in the labor force. If you're unemployed, that means you're not employed, but you're willing to work. This includes layoffs. So, and it also includes people looking to start a job. But the limitation is that it does not include people who are discouraged or people who are underemployed, which means that you are overqualified for your job, like you're a PhD at McDonald's, for example. And over here, if you want a job now, but like you just can't find one within the past year, then you're marginally attached. And if you've given up, then you're discouraged. So, to define the unemployment rate, we have to define the labor force, which is the employed plus unemployed population, and then we have the unemployment rate, which is the ratio of the unemployed population to the total labor force. Here's an example of unemployment not being indicative of the true state of the labor market. So after the real estate and stock markets finally burst in Japan, they entered a period called the lost decades of Japan. So that's where their overall economic growth stagnated. So even though unemployment was low, their GDP remained stagnant, and people were they blamed this on Japanese government propping up inefficient institutions and firms, which made it hard for new firms to get started and create opportunities. So despite that, unemployment will not be affected as it only shows how many people have jobs, not if these jobs are productive. Over here on the left, you have the unemployment rate. Overall, it's at a 3.54%, which is okay. The GDP over here, it's remained stagnant and hasn't grown over the course of 3 decades, which is quite terrible in terms of growth. So the point I want to drive home is that unemployment, despite telling us how many people in the economy have a job, doesn't tell us what they're doing at their jobs. So in Japan, after their lost decades, even though people continue to be employed, their productivity hasn't grown, their GDP has remained stagnant. So that's part of the labor market that unemployment does not tell us. Sources.